The Hallowed Knights. They are the fourth Storm host of the Stormcast Eternals to be founded by Sigmar Heldenhammer. They wear burnished silver armour with golden trim. The Hallowed Knights are zealous and loyal to Sigmar, and their faith is absolute. To them, the war against chaos is a sacred crusade from which no sacrifice is too great. They are pure of spirit and filled with so much holy fervour that they fear no evil, and the magics of evil have little hold upon them. The Hallowed Knights were recruited from all of the mortal realms, and especially those that were devoutly worshippers of Sigmar. The Hallowed Knights have taken to the mortal realms in a holy fervour, striking down the enemies of the God King Sigmar, and calling out his name and chanting their mighty war cry, "Only the faithful." So, let's look at how we can start a Hallowed Knights Stormcast Eternal army. The reason we're looking into this is, of course, we have Garda Steelsoul, the Hallowed Knights special character, coming out with Broken Realms Bellicor, so I thought we'd have a look at how we can start a Hallowed Knights army to add him to. So, start off with, we are of course Stormcast Eternals as our faction. This means we get access to both the regular Stormcast Eternal rules and the Stormkeep rules found in Broken Realms Morathi. Both of these give us two very different ways to play, and both of them can actually work pretty well with Hallowed Knights. For starters, we get the normal Stormcast Allegiance. Now the big thing with this is that we get Shock and Awe, and we get the Ride the Lightning abilities, where we can come down, teleport onto the battlefield with half our units, and we're -1 to hit in the turn that we come down. This is mainly the big thing about that sort of army, which you get the teleporting stuff. Now the other option you get is you get Stormkeep, where instead your army doesn't teleport, but instead is much more defensive. It holds its lines, and Liberator units get some buffs around them, and they also give access to other buffs around them as well, and you can take some Cities of Sigmar units in there in the 1 in 4 units fashion. Now, Hallowed Knights, the sub-faction themselves, can be used alongside both Stormkeep and the regular Stormcast Eternals rules, and it has some combat-orientated abilities. For instance, the command ability you get for Hallowed Knights is the ability to add 1 to run and charge rolls, and you can get run and charge on a unit you use it on. In addition, you get the Martyr's Strength command trait, which allows your hero to fight as he dies, and you get a little heal on your heroes as an artifact as well. You then got the ability Only the Faithful, where you can ignore the effects of spells on a 6+. This does have its downside, as it does negate your own spells as well. So magic generally isn't something the Hallowed Knights really use. Luckily, your Stormcaster, you got plenty of priests to use instead. With that in mind though, let's get looking at how we can start building up this force and get a basis of a force on the ground. Or in the sky, whichever. Alright, where do we start for some Hallowed Knights? Well, my suggestion for a first hero would be a Lord Veritant. Now, you could choose to go a Lord Relictor, he's a priest as well, and that's the reason I'm choosing the Lord Veritant. However, the Lord Relictor is only available in the Start Collecting box, which has a few different issues. But if you'd like to have an idea of what that Start Collecting box gives you, I've got a video on the channel talking about the Thunderstrike Brotherhood Start Collecting box, so you can go have that as a checkout. I'll leave it as a link in the video up top somewhere. Now, also, alongside him, you're going to be able to get a box of Liberators and Judicators. I think these are a great place to start with any army that's going to focus on Warrior Chamber. And the reason why we're going to focus on the Warrior Chamber more than, say, the Sacrosanct is because the Sacrosanct Chamber, a lot of their buffs come from wizards, and, well, we don't get guaranteed access to spells. I know it's only a 6 you ignore your spells, however, it's generally not good to bank on something that's not a given, where your priests, while I guess their prayers don't go off quite as often, or they're a little bit harder to get off, they do go off and they do work when you at least get them off. So I think a Veritant is a great shout. In addition to this, a Veritant also gives you access to one of Stormcast's best battalions in the Battle Tome, or I guess in the army in general. It's not actually in the Battle Tome, it's in Broken Realms Morathi, and that is Stormkeep Patrol. Veritant and then 2 units of Redeemer, which both Judicator and Liberators are, can be put into that battalion. And so you've got a decent starting force here for a really strong battalion as well. It should mention the Judicator Adjusticar, which is available in the battalion as well. But Liberators have a few different weapon options. Now, for me, I think with Liberators, it's always Hammers. Hammers, for me, are just the best option for them. The reason being that Stormcast have plenty of bonuses to hit across their army, but not a lot of bonuses to wound. Therefore, it's easier to make the 4+ to hit better than it is the 4+ to wound. I mean, Liberators themselves have a built-in +1 to hit if they're attacking something with 5 wounds or more. On the same note, you have Judicators, where I think the options for the 2 weapons are decent. You've got rate of firepower in your crossbows, or you've got the Skybolt bows, which have 1 shot but have rend, and the sergeant can get some exploding hits. These have a much longer range as well than the crossbow variants, but the crossbow's specialist weapon does do some mortal wounds to large units. So I think the Judicators really are a bit of this, a bit of that. You can choose which one you want to go with, and I really don't think there's a bad choice out of the 2. Though if they're going to be, say, holding back and holding objectives for you, the bows might be the better option, as the range will really enable them to be used across the table more throughout the entire game. But now that we've talked about where we can start, let's look at how we can expand this force. So, where can we look to go to next with our Stormcast Eternals army? Well, I think a great thing for Hallowed Knights is actually the Dracothian Guard. Now, Dracothian Guard is a broad stretch of units. It actually is 3 different units: Tempestors, Desolators, and Concussors, and Fulminators as well, 4, sorry. Now, the thing with those is I think there are 3 variants that suit the Hallowed Knights more, and that is the 3 combat variants in Desolators, Concussors, and Fulminators. What these units are is they are Dracothian mounted cavalry. They are mounted on these mini sort of drakes. Now, first of all, they've got some decent shooting coming out of these monsters, and they have a decent armor save as well on a 3-up base, re-rolling 1s. They are pretty down tanky. Now, what you can do with these as well is giving them run and charge really just up that movement and allows you to get these units into combat really, really fast. For me, I think this is the best thing about them. Being able to get units of Fulminators or Concussors into combat is just great. And all of them play some different roles. Like Concussors can play around with pile-in tricks with their ability to stop pile-ins if they roll some 6s on their hits. Desolators get more attacks in large units, and Fulminators just hit like a truck on the charge. They've all got some decent uses. Now, combine them though, I think the next 2 units work really well with nearly anything you can put in a Hallowed Knights army, but particularly work well with those Dracothian Guard as well. So the Castellan has an ability where he gives +1 to save. This is really good because, as you just heard, 3+ save now goes to a 2-up, re-rolling 1, so that's pretty sweet. The Heralder on himself, he can give run and charge or retreat and charge. This can allow your Stormcast blocks to not get in protracted fights. Really good if you're taking something that's good on the charge like Fulminators, as it can allow you just to retreat out of combat and then go back in, getting your full complement of bonuses and attacks and power into the fight in more occasions. Lastly, if you are choosing to go with a Stormkeep army, it's worth picking up maybe a couple of Cities of Sigmar units. One I found I almost always go to in a Stormkeep army is picking up a block of Free Guild Guard. This is a really cheap unit, and the reason I do this is because it frees up points for the rest of your army. 10 Free Guild Guard at 80 points is cheaper than any other battle line you're going to get in Stormcast Eternals, so it's just going to free up those few extra points. Also, they're more bodies than, say, a block of Liberators, so generally they do serve a little bit better of a job than Liberators just on numbers holding that little backfield objective for you. They can do a pretty decent job. But that's not to say you can only go there. If you're playing Stormkeep, you can have 1 in 4 Cities of Sigmar, so you've got a wide variety of units to pick from. It's a really cool thing about Stormkeep because it just gives you more options. When you start thinking about Stormcast plus Cities of Sigmar, there's over 100 options there. There's so many pieces you can go and put into this army. And so here we have a sample army list we put together to talk about everything we've sort of talked about in the video and put it all into practice. So we've got Stormcast Eternals, we're playing Hallowed Knights, obviously, and we're going to be using the normal Stormcast Eternal rules. Now, we're going to be playing 1,000 points, and the reason we're going the normal Stormcast Eternal rules is I really do think that we give some options to the army if we have the ability to deploy via lightning. So to start off with, our leader is going to be a Lord Veritant. It's going to be our general. He's going to have the command trait Martyr Strength, which allows him to pile in and fight when he dies. I mean, it's nothing major on this character. And he's got the artifact Parchment of Purity, which allows him to heal a wound. It's cool. It keeps our general alive, and our general is where we're getting run and charge from, so that's pretty important. He's then got the prayer Divine Light, which is a really interesting prayer. So you can either pick one of your units and you make your opponent reroll 6s to hit that unit of yours, or you pick one of your opponent's units and you reroll 1s to hit that unit. with all of your units, so it can be used both offensively and defensively. It's a really good prayer. We then got a second Lord Veritan who's got the artifact Lantern of the Tempest. This puts out a 12-inch aura around the hero where your opponent has to reroll 6 to hit with shooting. So this can be combined with the Divine Light prayer to make a unit 6 to hit needing to be rerolled it against them for both combat and shooting, because Divine Light is only in combat. Now, on top of this as well, we've got the prayer Bless Weapons on them, which allows a unit when they roll a 6 to hit does 2 hits instead of 1. It's pretty cool. And rounding out our heroes, we've got a Knight Heralder who gives us the retreat and charge, or run and charge again. Just giving us more access to this across the army. It really compounds the things we can already do. Battle line 10 Liberators, and we've already spoken about why I suggest hammers over swords for them. And I would recommend going a full complement of Grand Hammers, and don't forget to put a Grand Hammer on your Sergeant, very important, and 2 units of 5 Judicators. Now, this is why I've gone for the non-Stormkeep army with this. I think crossbows have a definite place to play within this if we take 2 units of 5 Judicators. Now, the reason I've taken 2 units of 5 is because you can play around with this however you want. You can have one unit with bows that sit in your backfield and hold objectives for you. And you can have the other unit with crossbows which go up and try and wipe out some of your opponent's objective holders, which generally aren't that tough. Or you could have them both doing that role, or both doing the former role of holding objectives with bows. I think you've got the most options available to you if you run 2 units of 5. Lastly, we're rounding out the army with 2 Fulminators. The reason we've gone for Fulminators is they just generally have that little bit more damage than the others. Concussors are really good and techy, and probably a little bit better in larger points games when you're fighting much bigger units. And Desolators need to be taken in units of massive sizes, so you're definitely not seeing a unit of them in smaller game sizes, I think, unless you're dropping something to take them. And to get those Desolators in the army, you're probably dropping 5 Judicators and the Knight Heralder or one of the Veritans. So that is why we've got Fulminators. But what do you think of Hallowed Knights? Have you played around with them at all? I really love to hear your thoughts, and are you looking towards and forwards to Guard of Steel Soul coming out and making this army hopefully something a little bit better? Who knows what the future holds for the Hallowed Knights? Only the faithful. Well, thank you all for watching. We hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to come chat more with me and other members of our little community here at Sinful Gaming, you can do so by coming and joining our Discord server, which you'll find a link to in the description of the video. While you're on YouTube as well, go check out my featured channel section, which contains a bunch of other fantastic Age of Sigmar content creators doing everything from battle reports, tactical videos, lore videos, painting tutorials, and more besides that. Lastly though, we'd like to give a shout out to everyone who helps support the channel via Patreon and YouTube members. Thank you to James, AJC, JC, Christian Weir, Soren, Kenny Lowell, Outer and Shot First, Cowspawn, James Crowder, and Andrew Bowen. Thank you all so much for your support. And if you'd like to help support the channel like these fine people do, you can do so by clicking once again on the links down in the description of the video to either YouTube members or Patreon. Thank you all for supporting the channel though, watching the content. Have a nice day, stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. Ciao for now.